whatever you got going on in your life, whatever is hurting you, whatever that guy that pissed you off the other day, the whatever in traffic, anything in family, anything with your significant other, or your car's in the shop, all that stuff is very small because at the end of the day, it's just you. You got your stuff to worry about. So for a new week, it's a new you. You can't think about stuff last week. You cannot hold on to that shit.
You are now tuning in to the Roughnecks Podcast with your host, Cole Nixon. Much love.
One last thing before we get into today's episode. A lot of people ask how they can support the podcast. Well, I have a couple easy ways. The first way is just listen and subscribe. And another thing you can do is go follow the Roughnecks Podcast on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube as well. If you get something out of today's show, then do me a favor. Share it with a friend. If you really want to go above and beyond to support the podcast, then head over to roughneckspodcast.com and get you some of that merch. I appreciate all of the support, but let's get into today's episode. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Roughnecks Podcast. We are on to episode 101. I know I said I'm going to stop saying what episode it is, but I know for a fact that this is episode 101. We are over the hump of 100, which is crazy to think that we are over 100 episodes. So I just want to say thank you again, even though episode 100 was me saying thank you to all the listeners, all to my guests, and everything like that. But the limited edition stickers, as of now, are still out. You can go get those. There's only... I don't know how many are left, but there's only a handful left. So go get them. There was only 15 made, and 15 will sell. And then once they sell out, they're sold out. But joining me today, I had someone I met way back in high school. But just to kind of kick it off, Jared Corum, welcome to the Roughnecks Podcast.
Thanks so much, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we actually just had a little bit of a mix-up. I thought we were going to do this in person, but I had to cancel on you twice, and we were kind of both really busy. And then I texted you, said, "Are you allergic to cats?" And you kind of thought that was a weird question, but I thought we were doing it in person. It's easier to go back to Zoom than it is to go from Zoom down to in person. So, but it was kind of had a little bit of a mix up.
You sent that message, and I thought I already told you, we were supposed to do this last Thursday, and I was in town in Ohio for a wedding, but I had to come back down to Georgia I had work all this past week. And you asked me that question, and I didn't even put it together. I just that's a weird question. And I thought, oh, it's just something he's probably asking for the podcast. Let's get info on me. But then I was like, wait a minute, he probably thinks we're doing it in person, because you said you can bring beer, you can bring anything you want. So I was like, okay, no, over Zoom. But I told you earlier, I would much rather prefer to do it in person, but got to do what you got to do sometimes.
Yeah, like I said, we talked about off the air. I just started doing in-person episodes. These in-person episodes are awesome, but I'll never. Zoom has definitely come in handy. I would have never knew about it if it wasn't for COVID, but because that's how I had a lot of classes to finish up my college career. But Zoom's definitely come in handy, and it's nice to still be able to have conversations with people, even if I've had conversations with people in California and you're in Georgia and stuff like that.
Right when COVID kicked off in early 2020, that was my last semester of college. So yeah, my last half semester of college was all over Zoom. So it was all the projects and papers, they weren't really sticklers about anything. They were just like, let's just get this semester out of the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mine, it kicked in the end of my junior year, and then I had that one final year, which was kind of hybrid, where I had in person and I had, on Zoom. But definitely the in Zoom, they weren't sticklers. They were just like, let's just do this. Like, they're all open note quizzes because how am I going to be able to tell if you cheat or not? So,
yeah, exactly.
But just to kind of,
they said for these exams, that can tell, if you have another window open, but you can just be right here on your phone Googling, what is that? So I mean, for all being honest.
Yeah, I remember I printed off the slideshows because they'd send us the PowerPoint. I'd just print them off and be like, well, you can't tell if I have that. So, but just
Dude,
to kick off,
it is. Yeah.
just to kick off the episode, kind of give a background for the listeners who don't know who you are. Just kind of tell us who Jared Corum is.
Well, from Ohio, went to Watkins, graduated from there in 2013, played football, wrestled for 2 years, and did track and field for 2 years, but I played football all throughout. Joined the military right after. I was Air Force, and I was a firefighter. I did that for 6 years, and while still going to school and working. And I got out in 2019, and I moved to Georgia in October 2020 to pursue the stuntman career full time. So this is where I am now. I started all that up in Cleveland, and right when I got back from overseas in early 2018. And so I did that for a little bit, up there. But there's really not a market for film, like an entertainment career in Cleveland and in Ohio in general, 2-3 films a year. But I'm glad I started up there. It gave me good experience to when I, came down here. It's much more competitive down, in Atlanta, where it's new Hollywood, but pretty easy going. I can cross this off. I can cross this off the bucket list. I never thought I'd get asked to do a podcast. So this is pretty cool.
I have a lot of people say that, and it's like because a lot of people are like so thankful that I have them on. And I'm like, I don't think you understand. Like, I think I'm more thankful than you because like if it wasn't for my guest, like I feel like this wouldn't be a great podcast because I mean honestly, who wants to just listen to me? So it's fun to get a bunch of, and especially when you have some people who you might not think, some of the people that I'm like what do they really have to offer, but I'll bring them on. Not saying it's you, but like I've had people like that and they bring awesome episodes. So you kind of have a mixture, and it's really fun to like talk to people, have conversations with people, and especially people you kind of know. It kind of makes the conversation go real smooth. But kind of take me through what the decision was like. Why did you decide, you know what, I'm gonna go pursue this career, the stuntman career? Like what was that decision process like?
Basically, I had got back from overseas, and life is short, seeing life cut short, something like that. And I was like, you know what? I got back and I felt this independence. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for the dream. You got to go for what you want. You got to be happy. And I always wanted to be an actor as a kid. I'm always quoting movies and always imitating actors and funny scenes and whatnot. But I didn't really think I was cut out for it. So I did some research. I was like, oh, the next thing is, stuntman. I was like, I've always been, physical and stuff like that. And, I decided to go for that. So honestly, I just did some Googling when I got back and got a hold of this guy up in Cleveland. He's a small time guy up in Cleveland, one of the stunt coordinators that usually when a film comes to Cleveland for whatever reason, the scenery, the tax incentive that Ohio has, whatever, he usually gets us. He usually is the coordinator of it and brings some of us on for, there's a few people there's a team up there. It's called Stunt Predators, and, still part of that, but, he respected, the move down here. And the more I did it up in Cleveland, all the training, the more I loved it. I'm like, man, this is definitely the life. This is the life that I want. This is the life I want to go for, to fight for. And I knew it, so much that, I love Ohio. I'm down here in Georgia. I miss Ohio, dude. I love it up there. It's so much less hustle, so much less bustle, and it's much more competitive down here. But it's much like the training down here is way more crisp. It's every day. Up there is usually like maybe once a month. I still had a life and stuff like that, and finishing school. And but down here it's all business. Like no one comes to Atlanta for tourism or to retire. It's all business. It's all I'm very, and for the work I have received down here, I'm very fortunate for all the longer I've been down here, the more I've been like, and the people I've met, the people I've worked with, trained with, whatever, this is the more I used to be when I first moved down here, and even now, some days I'm like, man, this has just been rough. All this networking, all this, just everything, because I still, own my house up north back in Ohio, and I'm just doing that. It makes it very easy to be like, you know what, screw all this, because I could just bounce out of Georgia and just come back up to Ohio. But the longer I've been down here, the easier it has gotten, networking and the people and the knowing the knowing the land. So basically, the more I've been down here, the more I want this, and the more comfy I've gotten, and comfortable to be able to call this, a career, and working towards it very hard.
What I like that you kind of just talked about is like you kind of mentioned, like over time, like you started liking it more, like it became better. And that's kind of like, relating it to something that I know. And it's just like an example that can go to a lot of things. It's like I remember college football. Me and actually Kyle Gibson talked about it in episode 99, where we had people quit the first day. And he's like, I had a kid that showed up before the first meeting, decided he was going home. And it's like, how do you even know if this is what you like? Like, how do you even know? You have to give things time. You have to actually give it a chance. You can't like just give up. Now everything's not for everybody. Like, you might have like done it for a couple of years and just been like, I don't know if this isn't what I want to do. Like, but that at least you gave it a shot. You don't live with that what if situation
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of people live with. You don't, it's what ifs are almost kind of like a regret in a way, because you're sitting there wondering, you keep sitting wondering what it would have been. But at least you would know if you give it a shot.
Yeah, the what ifs will eat the skin off your bones. You got to go for 100%. If you know what you want, and you want to fight for it, you can't get discouraged, because believe me, in this business, you get your hopes up a lot, and then you get let down. Turn my phone on silent. You get let down all the time. You hear about this opportunity, and then they're like, oh wait, something changed. Whatever you're trying to go for, the dream, you can't get discouraged too early. You got to, exactly what you said, you got to give it time, and then if you work hard enough towards it, you'll be there.
Another thing you mentioned too is like the networking, and I wanted to ask you, how important is networking in your type of business?
Dude, it's everything. It is not, you could be the craziest stunt performer, you could throw all those rainbow kicks, you could smash through walls, you could be awesome in everything you do, but in the entertainment industry, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
I,
It's
I
and,
feel
and
like
it's
that's in a lot of industries, really. Like I feel
yes.
like that's in general in life. I feel like I learned through this podcast. That's one of the big reasons I keep going with it too. Is I've got to meet a lot of cool people through this podcast, and I've built my network so much to where I have people. If I need something like a certain type of thing, I can go to this person, or I can go to that person. I have different areas I can go to. So it's networking is very key in all areas of life, I feel like.
Yes, and it kind of sucks that it's like that, because you have the talent, and that should be enough, but it does kind of suck that you have to just know people. You got to always be networking. I'm not like much of a social person. I'm never like to go out of my way to be social and to, friends with everyone and kiss ass. But in this business, that it's kind of a given. You got to be like that. You got to pay your dues. You got to make yourself known. And it is it's every day. It's an everyday grind doing that. So it's always a project, always something.
So what is the schooling or training like to get it to become a stuntman? Like what does that exactly consist of? Because I feel like a lot of people don't really truly understand like what it is. Because I personally don't exactly know what you would have to go through, or like what you have to be good at for say to be able to go and be a stuntman.
Yeah, it's okay, stunt performers, we come in all shapes and sizes. I know some like women, for example, who are some biggins, and they do plenty of stunt performing stuff. Usually it's not like fight stuff, but it's the simple falls, simple reactions. And when I say reactions, it's like taking a hit like to the like you do that,
Mhm.
like someone punched you, but you just got to have good timing and know, like I've seen it plenty of times. If say you're going to get punched this way, but people react like this. So you know um but it's always nice to bring something to the table. Say I wanted to stay up in Ohio and stay in Cleveland, and do a like use my degree for a career and like a steady income, but I just did, stunts on the side. Up there, it's nothing really complicated. No, there's no not like I hear a lot of people say 90% of stunts is fight scenes. You got to know how to fight. You got to know how to throw a punch. You got to know how to kick. You got to know some sort of martial art. And the more you learn, the better. But down here in Atlanta, it's much more competitive. There are so many people moving from LA to here. So the training, like getting into it, if you have something like, okay, if you're athletic, look at me. Like I've played a cop so many times, and I've played, like straight white male, that's literally how they say it. So if I have that, which, that's not hard, but at the same time, it's, I've been practicing, a lot since I moved down there. I like in boxing, Muay Thai boxing, wrecks, falls, reactions, car hits, and there are some stunt performers I know who are amazing fighters, but they're not heights. They're totally against heights, which I didn't know that until I moved down here. And I thought that was crazy. I'm like, I thought that was a prerequisite to be a stunt performer is not to be scared of heights. But some people like back out of it. Like if they, like another guy last year, he backed out of doing something and they called me in because I was the next most similar person to double because I wasn't scared of heights. But your question, like training in it, it's basically get it networking with the right people, networking with all these people, and you're just trained. And a lot of it is fight scenes and doing fight choreography, which basically is you take a fight scene in a movie, any movie that's ever had a fight scene that was choreographed by stunt performers or a stunt coordinator, and you just roll through a stunt scene one after the other. And fight scenes, they're not my favorite thing to do. They're very stressful because if you're that one guy, like if you're, say the camera is over here, you got to be able to throw the punch to make it look like you hit the person. But if you were too shallow on the hit and you can tell on camera completely misses, you messed it all up. And it's only that one thing, but there's so many moving parts to it. So knowing good people and having, good trainers and, that's where like what it takes, to be training in stunts. It's every day.
Have you ever had somebody actually punch somebody? Like, I feel like that kind of happens from time to time where you're trying to, you almost get too close and you just cock them right in the freaking face.
Yes. Up in Cleveland, I didn't deck the guy, but we were just rehearsing. I said, oh, and he was like, he wasn't looking, but he was just turning back to look at us. And I accidentally kind of like that hard, it wasn't anything, but a few months ago we were training and the guy, man, he hit me right in the temple. He smacked me too. And I wasn't mad, shit happens. And sometimes, but I haven't seen that guy since, he humbled himself. And because all of us were like, dude, what the heck? And then another guy, is my bruise still pretty fresh? Well, my bruise is pretty much gone. I had a huge bruise on my leg a few weeks ago. We were doing a sword fight. We were, choreographing. So we had like these bamboo swords and whatnot. And the dude, he, like the last third of every swing he would do, this guy was new. I had never met him before. Obviously, he had never done swords. So we just needed a body to fill. They were like, it's simple what you're doing. Just don't go 100%. But man, he took that bamboo sword, he smacked me right on the side of the leg, which was what was supposed to happen, but he full force. And I felt it. I winced so hard and I just looked at him, like, oh my God. I wasn't mad. It happens. I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to be that dick. I've seen other people get humbled and get locked up, like when someone else is pissed, but I've never been the guy to, especially if I don't know you, I'm not going to get upset just because I don't want to come off as a dick. Mm-hmm. So I understood it. I was just like, man, chill. And then again, he humbled himself. I haven't seen him since. So that happens a lot. Say this guy who wants to be, or guy or girl wants to be a stunt performer and they get invited to training. We train at a lot of gymnastic centers or parkour centers or at parks, just wherever, our cliques, our groups, whatever, and they just get invited by someone like, yeah, come along. But if you mess up like that, people are going to remember that,
Mm-hmm.
and they know that. So sometimes they just leave and they don't show back up. So that's on them.
Would you say that there's more males or females in that industry? I feel like most people probably think it's a more male-oriented industry, but I feel like they almost forget like there's females in it too.
No, there are definitely more males. It's like I said earlier, it's like 90% of it is fight scenes, and in a fight, all these fight scenes. Think of any movie, usually there's just some goons. All you're in is like a t-shirt and a jacket, or you're in a suit. It's always men fighting. It's always there's some women in there. It's becoming more inclusive, which is good, because in Atlanta there's only like 2 Asian girls for like the whole city, so they work all the time. But that just tells you there's not enough women. Like they got to fly in Asian women from LA sometimes, just to suffice for a scene. So it definitely is more male oriented.
So I wanted to kind of go through the whole process. We'll start from the beginning though. Like, what is an audit? Like, do you have to audition for it, or like, kind of do you just get to call like, hey, we know what your work is, and you're getting a role?
Dude, sometimes it is. Sometimes it's that. Sometimes, like with COVID and everything now, they want you to send in an audition. And I know a lot of people. I have never, like I said, I was wanted to be an actor. I've never had any formal acting training. Like when I did the Marksman, my first ever anything, I went into that coordinator up in Cleveland called some of us white guys, because he on his team, because they say on the call sheet we need a white stunt performer who can act, just to play a cop. Sometimes, and they're very blatant sometimes in describing what they need, and like you have to be okay with being called this or that, just for the scene. But sorry,
Audition.
audition. Shit, I totally forgot where I was going with that. Audition. So for auditions, I know people who have like a room in their house who are just dedicated to auditions. But me, I just kind of set my phone up on something and I just do something. Like I'll set it on the windowsill and I'll just do the scene. Usually, if there's like other lines in the script, they want another person to read those other lines. But most of the time, if they want me, like for back in February, I did a film called Shirley, and I was playing a cop, and I had no clue that they were going to give me lines. I just thought they wanted me driving a cop car and bring it, to a skidding halt. But they, right there and then, like as soon as we came to shoot the scene, they came up to me. They said, "We want you to do these lines." And I said, "Okay." So anytime I've auditioned for lines, like it's always cop stuff. Anytime I've read for anything, so I guess I play a cop really well.
I was gonna ask, how many times have you been a cop?
Dude, I've been a cop. It's been almost like 10 times I've played cop, and military as well, because I just got that look. I get told that all the time. You get, because you get typecasted for some stuff, which a lot of people usually get discouraged about, but really not me. I'm just fortunate for the work at this point in my career. And like a few weeks ago, a friend of mine said, "Yo, you are starting to get typecasted as a cop in military a lot. You need to make a 30-second reel just being a cop and doing cop stuff." I said, "Okay." So I called a camera friend of mine and another friend of mine who was wanting to do the same thing. Another friend of ours had this house in Atlanta that is, just decrepit, and we could kick in the doors and bust out windows. So we just went in, we just did like room clearing stuff, busting in through the door. We just kept resetting that, and, just simple stuff like that. So that's, your reel is also an audition as well, because you got to be able to font what you can. If you like something on your reel, like, okay, cool, you can do that. But the point is, like, you have to be able to do that 20 more times exactly like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I've never done I've done in-person auditions for stuff, but I've never had any sort of formal acting training, which is what I mean when I say like anytime they're just like, "Okay, cool, you play a cop pretty well, you read like a cop." And it's but the stuff I say, like in the Marksman, I just feel like it was so weird and cheap that a cop would never say that. But it's all goofy movie stuff. But other times, like this past week, the coordinator called me. He said, "Were you prior military?" I said, "Yeah." he said, "Did you ever get qualified to drive the MRAP?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay." It was just over the phone. "I'll see you on Monday." He called me last week when he said that. And so sometimes it's just, word of mouth. You don't even have to audition. It just depends.
That kind of answered my next question of, do you think that the military kind of like helped in your acting
Oh
career
yeah.
and everything?
Oh yeah. I am very proud of my service. I loved the time I was in. I did 6 years. I knew pretty early on in the military that I wasn't going to be a lifer, but it being prior military, it has with jobs, with career, with school, with and whenever I had to miss school for military stuff, I never had to make that work up. They're
Yeah.
just like, "Yeah, don't worry about it." And then in stunts as well, I was a firefighter, so I got qualified to drive all kinds of vehicles and big trucks, which is exactly how I got on this film this past week. And I could, because when we did Cherry, they had to bring us in. They said it was helpful if you were prior military, so they didn't have to teach you how to wear the uniform, how to do facing movements, how to do this, how to do that. They were like, "Oh, you already know that? Bam. We don't even have to tell you." Because they wanted us to be like informal security for the actor. So we were like kind of always around him. So that was pretty cool.
Today's episode is brought to you by roughneckspodcast.com. If you want to support the podcast, then head over to roughneckspodcast.com and grab you some of that Roughnecks merch. We have everything from t-shirts, long sleeves, sweatshirts, hats, and many more. Stay up to date on the website for new merch coming every couple months. You can place an order and it'll get sent directly to your door, and I don't even take any of the money from it. The money gets put right back into the podcast to continue to improve it for you. If you can't afford to buy some merch this time, then simply just subscribe to the newsletter, and it'll keep you up to date on all the new things that are coming. I appreciate all of the support you guys give. It doesn't go unnoticed. Let's get back to today's episode. So we are back after a random technical difficulty, but I wanted to so how long does it take you for a typical movie? Like, do you do mostly movies? Like, have you done any TV shows or anything, or is it mostly movies?
There's some TV, but mostly movies here in Atlanta. Yeah.
So how long does the typical like recording process take, like for the whole movie? I feel like it kind of varies from movie to movie, but like kind of average, would you say?
Anywhere from 2 to 3 months. And I only say that because as a stunt performer, we're not on the entire time. It's not stunts every day. We might get a daily, a few dailies, maybe a weekly, 3 weeklies, or a monthly if you're on for that long. If it's a very action film. But it can be random. Like the one I just did this week, they said they've been filming since early March, and they're going to be done by the end of this month. So like almost 3 months.
So I want to I've been waiting to bring it up, but I wanted to go into probably, I'd say, one of your biggest roles, which was the Liam Neeson movie with the Marksman, the Liam Neeson movie. How was that experience? And kind of take us through like, getting that role to, just the experience itself.
Dude, it was epic. I'm still blown away by it. It was all a chance how I got on with them, but how I got there. Remember when I said the guy up in Cleveland called some of his white guys to read for this cop role? I read for it. It was the first ever audition, first ever reading audition to a casting director on camera, anything. And I got it. And I was surprised. And I called my guy up in Cleveland, and he knew I had never had any experience. And I said, "Dude, they just called me. I got it." He's like, "Really?" I swear to God. He's like, because he thought the same thing. I was like, wow. And because there was, believe it or not, another guy on our team who went in audition. We all saw each other there. He's an actual cop up in Mentor. Oh shit.
Oh, gotta love computers.
Yeah,
You always
I
have
know,
technical
dude.
difficulties.
There we go. But he's an actual cop, and we all thought, we were all sitting there laughing like, "Dude, Robert, you're a shoo-in. You're already a cop. They're gonna pick you." But no, they called me about 2 weeks later, and I was at work when I was building ponds, and they said, "Hey, the director loved you. You got it. We're gonna send you all the info." And First person I called was the dude up in Cleveland. Then I called my mom. I was like, Mom, you're not gonna believe this. And they went in, they gave me the whole costume, and I was reading the line, like, dude, I walked up on set. This is the first time ever being on set. All the tents, all the equipment, all these people on location. And I'm supposed to read these lines with Catherine Winnick. And, she was awesome. I had to get there very early in the morning to do makeup and stuff and costume. And she walked in to the makeup. They were like, "Hey, Catherine just landed." It's all this movie jargon. They said, "Catherine just landed. She's on her way to the makeup trailer." And I was like, "Oh," I was getting, antsy. And she walked in. She had these like huge black sunglasses on, like some crappy clothes. She looked like she was hungover. And she just kind of had a bag and a coffee. She's like, "What up, guys?" Kind of like Paris Hilton thing. And but she was very nice. She was cool. But we did the scene. The first time I ran with that scene, because we had to do walking and talking, and they filmed it with the camera behind us and then the camera in front of us. And I only messed up the scene one time. I only messed up my lines, and my heart was pounding the first take. But we did the take with the camera behind us like 20 times. So it really didn't take all that long to film. And then they switched the camera in front of us, and I read the lines, and I did the whole like that. And I messed up, and she kind of gave me an annoyed look because she had to keep getting in and out of a car and shutting the door. So I guess that was a lot for her. And we did that, and then I asked the base camp production assistant who's in charge of all the base camp. I said, "Hey, I hear Stunts is going to be here later. Do you mind if I hustle and stick around?" Even though, because I was wrapped at like 1:00 in the afternoon. They said, "Yeah." She said, "Yeah, that's cool. Just don't get in anyone's way." I said, "Okay." And then that day, the stunt coordinator of the film, Mark Vansilo, who was also Liam Neeson's stunt double, he was there. And, they came, and I saw him and his 3 stunt guys from LA. And I just walked up to him like, "Hey, how you doing? I'm here." I hustled him. I was like, "Hey, he was very cool. I gave him my headshot and resume, this and that and the other." And I said, "Hey, do you mind if I come here tomorrow and help you guys out if you're going to be here tomorrow?" He's like, "Yeah, that's cool. Come on here tomorrow." And, I missed a day of school that day. I skipped school the next day at Ohio State. I was like, screw it, man. This is way more important. And the next day I just kind of stayed out of their way, but I was, listening to them. I was watching them do their stuff. They did, some simple stuff. And I was talking to Liam Neeson stand-in, who's like this guy like our age. He's like 6'5", like shit. And all of a sudden Mark Vansilo walks up to me. He's like, "Hey, do you mind?" He just walked in. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing next week?" I said, "Nothing." He's like, "We're going to have you come in on Monday and get in full costume because we need to reshoot a fight scene with Liam Neeson, and you're going to double the trooper." Okay. And I just went, "What, dude?" all because I hustled him and asked to come back the next day. Like, I could have went to school and I would have never got that. I would have never been there. It was just on a chance and on a whim that I hustled him, which really doesn't happen all that often, especially stunt hustling now on sets. It's just because of COVID. Like, if you're caught on a set and you're not supposed to be there, you're screwed. But this was late 2019. And so the next Monday I go in, and I had to be there extra early because I had to get a bald cap put on me and like a wig with like a thinning hairline and the whole trooper costume. And Mark Vansilo, he was getting in makeup. So I thought the whole morning that I was just going to be doing the fight scene with him because he's like, oh, he's his double, Liam Neeson, he's a big flashy guy. He's not going to be here. Well, he was in the chair next to me. He was getting, his prosthetic nose put on to look like him and all that. And then we went out and rehearsed the scene with his stunt guys for like 3 hours because it was you saw the scene in the movie where it's with that truck. The dog was being very uncooperative to bite my arm. We had to do the whole thing. This is how it's going to go. And then he just looks at me when we were done. Okay, we got the fight scene down. He's like, "Now when Liam gets out here, you're going to have to do this." And I went, like, dude, what? Like, I was playing it cool outside, but on the inside, I was freaking out. Like, I thought I was going to be doing it with him. Well, we get to the set, and Liam, and Liam comes around, and he was the most cool guy. He was so awesome. I just went, hey, how you doing? And he's like, oh, nice to meet you. He's always talking in his Irish accent, and he can just turn it on and off like that. It was so cool.
That's what I find so impressive with some actors is like you'll hear them talk outside of like movies or TV shows, and you're like, that doesn't even sound like the same person. So it's crazy. Have you ever had to do an accent for anything?
Nope, never. It's funny about my accent for the Marksman with my dialogue scene with the actress. That's my first thing ever. That's what turned me off from ever. I used to say when I first started, like, oh, I'm gonna love all my movies. I'm gonna always go watch them. But the first time I heard my voice and saw myself on screen and the way I looked and just everything, it completely turned me off from it. And I'm just like, oh my God, I didn't know I had such a twang in my accent. So I just screwed. I was like, so ever since then, I haven't watched anything that I've been in.
Really?
Yeah. It's just weird. But anyway, with Liam, we did the scene, a bunch of times. The dog had to keep, jumping out of the truck, and I had a forearm pad under the sleeve of the trooper costume. But it was hard to, because this is my first stunt gig ever, and I'm sitting here with Liam Neeson, like 6'5", like holy dude, and just so much stuff going on through my head. And Mark Vanslow, he came up to me, he's like, I know like 100 different things going through your head, 20 different people talking to you. It's cool, you're doing all right. Just relax. So that helped. So we did the scene, and the dog. During the scene, I had to grab Liam and like keep slamming him up against the truck, but I was being very humble. Like I didn't want to like cross a line of like being like very tenacious. Well, they came up after the first take, and Mark came up to me. He's like, all right, this time I need you to really slam him into the truck. He can take it. Just do it. So I was like, okay. So I was, all full force. And afterwards, the dog, he kept going for my arm, but then he kept going for my hand too. It was just a little border collie dog, but there was like a tiny little speck of blood on my hand, and I wasn't going to make a big deal of it. I'm just like, whatever. But Liam, he saw it, and he's like, oh, yeah, right. I said, yeah, man, I'm good. He looks at the set medic. He's like, where's that Neosporin? He busts out a little pack of Neosporin on my hand and was rubbing it in for me. Liam fucking Neeson. Dude, I will never forget that. And I'm just like shaking. And there was a big crowd of onlookers to the set, and he went over and talked to all of. I had a quick while he was sitting there doing that. I had a quick 1-minute convo, like thank you, all this, and he's like, I love filming not in LA, because LA is so flashy. Everyone's very rude. Everyone's this, everyone's that. I love coming to different locations. I said, well, thank you. I hope Cleveland was, appreciative of you and welcoming and all that. But all the onlookers, these people, he went and shook every hand. He was taking pictures with all these women, and these women are just, ecstatic, Schindler's List and all that. But it was just, it was great. The whole experience was just fantastic. And then later on, we get back to set, and I run into Mark Vanslow again, and I talked to him for like an hour, because Mark Vanslow, if you don't know, he is one of the stunt legends in film. He's part of he's part of Stunts Unlimited, which is the largest stunt organization in the world. He's the one in charge of all the Marvel live shows. Like you go to Disney in California or Florida, he's the one who's always handling all that. I mean, this guy is just huge. So I was very, very fortunate to get to work with him and take direction from him, and the director on that as well, Robert Lorenz. He's the one who picked me for the dialogue scene, and if it wasn't for that dialogue scene and me hustling, I would have never been there in the first place. So the whole thing was a huge, because also, and if you're trying to make it in the entertainment industry, it's in my car, my SAG-AFTRA card, like getting in the union, that's like huge, and it takes people years to get in the SAG union if you're trying to be an actor, a sound guy, a stuntman, whatever. That first ever film that I did, first ever anything, I got my SAG card right there because Mark Vanslow put it in for me, and
that's like a great word of mouth to get right there.
Yes, because when you have your SAG card, it's basically like, if say you want to go for this career and you have to get this certification to let people know you're serious, and it's the biggest next step and it's very hard to get. That's what happened for me. So I was that propelled my career probably by years. And I was, still so fortunate for the entire situation.
So that was your first ever like anything you've done?
A fight scene and getting knocked out by Liam Neeson. My first ever anything, dude.
Not too many people I think can say the first time I got to do something was I got to slam Liam Neeson against a truck.
Oh, dude, when I first moved down here, people, you start to make friends and stuff, and they see my Instagram or they see my IMDb or this, that, and the other in my reel, and they're like, well, I couldn't put it on my reel for the longest time because of COVID, and it just delayed the process for like a year. But people saw that, they were like, "Dude, you had a fight scene with Liam Neeson? What?" And it takes people's opinion of you, like how serious you are. It puts it at the very next level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of talk about like it's kind of crazy how you look at everything, and it like how you went through that whole process, and then like it wouldn't have been for this if it wasn't for that, and it kind of goes like back to the very beginning. You have to give it a chance. You have to take time, because
Yes.
if you wouldn't have gave that, like even taken the chance to audition for that role, because like you guys said, there was somebody who was a cop who could have been a shoe-in, and
Yeah.
then you end up getting it, and it's crazy. If you give it the chance, you give it the time, you put in a little bit of effort, all of a sudden your whole career, your whole life can change off of that one chance.
Exactly, dude. You got to take what you need when you can get it in this world. And if you're given that opportunity, just go. Because I did think like, oh, I'm not much of an actor. It was only like 6 lines, but I was like, yeah, I'll drive all the way up to Cleveland unpaid to do that. And sure as shit, bam.
So I wanted to kind of reverse it a kind of a second and be like, have you ever had something where you haven't got the role? And how do you, if you have had that, how do you kind of handle that? Because I feel like you can't hold on to it too long because it'll just, maybe drag you down. But kind of talk us through the process of, not getting a role and, having to deal with that.
It will discourage you, and it happens all the time. And I learned a long time ago in this business. I learned up in Cleveland when I was still in Ohio. Basically, remember how I said for my first film, I got my SAG card? That got me on Cherry with Tom Holland. And the next thing, I did 3 days rehearsal for Judas and the Black Messiah, and as a cop, doing all these lines, pointing guns at the stars of the film. Keith, what's his name? Lakeith something, and the guy from Get Out. I was with them. I was rehearsing with them. I was doing everything. It was a long process. The coordinator of that, Larno Stovall, I was very fortunate, but the guy up in Cleveland, my coordinator up in Cleveland, that guy I talk about sometimes, even I called him and I said, "Hey, I just got some paperwork from SAG after the Screen Actors Guild saying I got my SAG card." And he was confused. He's like, "No, you didn't get that after your first project. You didn't get that. Don't even worry about it." So basically, this was all within a span of a few weeks. Dude, Marksman, Cherry, Judas and Black Messiah. Like I felt big. I felt on top of the world. And I basically, from listening to him, and he still profusely apologizes to me to this day about it, I unsagged myself because I was still green. I still consider myself green, which is basically like means you're new in the business. But I was green. I didn't know any better. And Larnell comes up to me, the coordinator for Judas and the Black Messiah, and he said, "Hey, are you SAG?" And I said, I was confused. I was like, "I don't know. They sent me some paperwork, but my guy in Cleveland here, Richard, he said no." So when they were only casting, even though I had done rehearsal and stuff like that, still being paid. That when it came down to shooting, he said, "Well, you got to be SAG," and he kind of like didn't know. It was all kind of up in the air. But if I had said that I was SAG, because I was, but I still didn't know, I missed out on that film. So they casted someone else in the role. But I learned even then, I was discouraged. I was really bent out of shape. But I'm like, you know what? I knew one day I was coming to Georgia. I'm like, can't let it get you. It happens. It happens all the time. People say, and even I agree and say, anytime someone asks me that, or getting on a film, I never get my hopes up. Like that guy called me last weekend to do this past week, driving, the MRAP. I don't get my hopes up. I don't say anything until I sign that contract. Mm-hmm. Until I sign that contract, I'm not on. So it basically, I give myself props because I learned a long time ago, don't get your hopes up and don't get discouraged. Stuff changes every 8 minutes on a set with a movie production. So, and you just can't let it get you down. Get on to the next. That's what I say. Put a smile on your face, oh well. The one thing that does piss me off about that Judas and the Black Messiah role is because he knows how much money I missed out on and all the residuals, because that was a 6 Oscar nominated film. And when I found out it was 6 Oscars, I was pissed, because the more Oscars, like, the more money the film gets, that's more residuals,
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think about that, and my buddy Johnny up in Cleveland, he was also on it, and he was SAG and was on it, and he told me about the residuals one day, like the residuals from that film. Oh, they're so good. And I'm just like, I was pissed. It was my fault. It was some of my fault, some of the guy. I do blame him a bit, but we laugh about it now, but now I know.
It's eventually like one of those things, like just getting discouraged and everything. Like you almost have to just, it's like the 5 minute rule. Like you get 5 minutes, get pissed off about it, and you're going to be pissed off about it. It's fine. But eventually you have to move on, because if you hold on to that stuff, it's just going to continue to bring you down. It's not going to help you further down the line. It's just going to make things worse further down the line. And, that's the relationships, that's with friendships, that's with acting, that's with whatever business you're in. You go look at it. If you hold on to things, it's eventually just going to kind of boil up and boil over and just eventually kind of mess everything up.
Absolutely. You said it. In every aspect of life, you cannot let that flood your mind when you need to make room for your future. You need to make room for stuff to fill your head with your future. If you're holding on to that shit, that resentment and, grudges, it's not good. So when it comes to stunts and not getting a role, not getting a gig, said I was told I was booked for all this time, and then they're like, oh, this changed, I just shake it off. Got to shake, just like when that dude hit me with a bamboo sword. Shake that shit off and just go at it again. Go on to the next.
So a couple more like acting questions before we get into some other stuff. But like I wanted to ask, how many, off the top of your head, if you can think of it, like how many roles have you done?
I think I'm up to 12 now. I looked at my IMDb the other day because we did a few weeks ago, I got booked to do a rigging gig and stunt performing in the stunt industry. Rigging is also a big part of it. And I was a rescueman in the military, so I know ropes, knots, pulleys, all that. We have rigging gigs. I have a small arsenal of rigging stuff, but basically it was just, it was so simple, just 2 ladders, a pipe, like a metal pipe, and then a pulley right here to pick up this actress who was like, some vampire thing. I don't know. But we set up that rig. So I got a rigging credit. But while I was there, they pulled me on to do stunts because the actor that they were using, it was such a on the whim thing, which that usually doesn't happen. But I was like, wow, that crossed that off the list as well. This actor, it was a breakaway 2x4 that he had to hit the actress in the back. He had to point a gun, and he also had to get pulled by a wire when the vampire, shoves him. And this guy, he just wasn't having it. They had the confidence in him to be able to do it, but they were like, this is just not working. So the coordinator came up. He's like, dude, I got this rigging guy right here. Look at him. They're pretty similar in body type. The other guy had a beard, but they're pretty similar. So they were like, screw it, let's just go. We were in a hotel, those ballrooms in hotels. We were in one of them filming, and they had it dressed up like an office or something like that. And they just said, look, you guys just go into they said, just go into the bathroom, give him your costume. Jared, I was wearing just a long sleeve and, gym shorts, and I gave him to the actor. I gave that to him. So we just changed it out real quick because I had to put my jerk vest on underneath the costume, and they attached a wire to it. And I got pulled back onto a mat, like through a hallway. So it's just that it was like that crazy. It can just happen like that.
What is the craziest stunt that you can say that you've done? Like, what is the thing that do you have anything that you're just totally against? First off, let's ask that. Is there anything that you won't do?
Okay. I think about that all the time. And you know what? Nothing really comes to mind because, they're not gonna call me. They're not gonna call, it sounds, a lot of people in the industry, we understand, but people outside, it can sound derogatory when they say, look, we just need some of you white guys. Like, they're not going to call Pasty my ginger ass to do, some kung fu stuff, because it's literally, when it comes to casting, they just say, look, we are looking for a light-skinned black man for this role. You must be okay with this. Or they said they need an overweight woman in this age range. You must be okay with being called a badass or something like that. So whenever I think like, so I know, like, if anytime I get called, like, I'm still early in my career, I won't turn anything down. There's nothing that, like, I'll do car hits. I've done car hits before. I love doing car hits. I'm not scared of heights. But so as far as like I would have to have something put in my head, like something I wouldn't do, but nothing, like maybe something with a tarantula. It depends. Like, if I was just there for, I mean, I probably wouldn't say no, but I would be freaked out for sure. But I think the scariest, not scary, but the most extreme thing I've done, like, aside from all the driving and, like, being very, like, driving that truck this past week, that big ass MRAP, military vehicle, I was coming, this close from the camera. It was on a huge crane, and the timing had to be right when it was in front of me and in my windshield, and I'm just driving, and it was just, so I had to be on point. This is $100,000 setup, this huge crane, all these people at the bottom. So that can get pretty stressful. Fight scenes are always very stressful because you've got to be on point. But I think the most extreme thing I've done was when I said they had a guy doubling this kid for this Christian film, something like it's like a God's Not Dead vibe film. It's not out yet. The working title of it was Life Mark, we shot it last year. The guy, he said he was scared of heights. They just wanted us to jump from a cliff down to the water, doubling this teenager. And the one guy backed out. And then the coordinator called me because I was already on it rigging. And he said, hey, you're like the next best, and you got to do this tomorrow. He's like, have you ever jumped off a cliff before in the water, like really high? I was like, yeah. I had never done it, but I had jumped at least like maybe 30 feet. But when we got there, he said, it was 60 feet down to the water, which was, I was up there looking down. I was like, oh my God, dude. And because where I was, like, there was my buddy, my stunt buddy, who was hidden behind a tree because they had the helicopter going, they had the drones, they had the camera on the boat way down there, they had a rescue boat right there. And I was asking the director before, I was like, so I'm not doing a backflip, I'm not diving, I'm not doing anything crazy. They said, you just want me to jump off and just, that's it. They said, yeah, that's all we want. The actor said we're not going to allow the actor to do this because this is very high and you could, smack and like really hurt yourself. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. But the day before, it was in this rock quarry just south of Atlanta. And they said the day before, originally it was like 80 feet, but it had rained the day before. So it was like a very condensed, like, pond kind of. So it raised it up like 20 feet. So I think now, if they're really being serious about that, dude, I'm not gonna lie. Jumping that first time, I did it 4 times, 2 times by myself, and then 2 times.
Yeah, we can't do it once. We got to do it 4 times.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is, this was last April. This was over a year ago now. It was freezing cold. I tell you what, that water was freezing cold, and it was so windy that day. After the first time I did it, and I finally got that shock, all I was in was shorts and a tank top. And dude, that I wanted to stay in the water because when I got out, that wind hit me. Because they pulled me up into the rescue boat, and then we went to the complete other side of the pond, this like lake, to reset. And the reset was like 20 minutes, and they were supposed to have that, like, they gave me like a robe to put on, and I was so cold. Like, afterwards, like, my lips and my face were like purple because I was like jackhammering all day. And they were supposed to have a Polaris Ranger ready on standby with the heat going. It was one of the fancy ones with doors and stuff. And I get there after the first take, and it's just sitting there with the doors open, not running. I'm like, what the fuck, guys? Like, I'm freezing my ass off. And then, so they dried me off as best they could. Did any more, covering of my tattoos, if anything, and did it again. And then we did it 2 more times with 2 other stuntmen who were also doubling these teenagers in this, you know, film, whatever, these kids were just goofing around in the film and just jumping. But it was, I'm not gonna lie, that's what I was going back to. It was pretty intimidating. That's that first time, that 60 feet, like 3/4 of the way down, I was like, oh shit, because I started to teeter off, and it was, I never thought I'd do that and be freaked out by it. But the next time I jumped, I was like, okay, got to be a little more in tune with this, because I would jump, but it was so high that I would kind of like pencil in and land. They were like, stop doing that, you know, be more spread out. Well, the last take I did, dude, I smacked the bottom of my left arm like really hard on the water, and it felt like I had a sunburn for a few days. That's why I was, you know, because it was like 60 feet. Like, say I smacked, like it, I don't know what they say, like hitting concrete at a certain height of water. I don't think it's 60 feet, but 60 feet, that'd mess you up for sure.
I jumped off of a bridge one time going canoeing, like, you know, one of the train tracks into the river, and just that little bit smacking my feet, like that hurt. And almost like, that's the thing, is like you can smack almost anything. Like you could just, how you land going, you know, at that speed, you just hit the right way and it smacks. How many cameras are usually on a like for a scene? Because like you just meant, you know, they had the helicopter, they had the drone. Like, is it typical to have a lot, or is it normally just a couple?
It's typical to have a lot when you can, so you can get it from multiple angles if you're able to hide everything. And like this past week, we were in this like military camp, so all these military tents were in this huge field and everything. But all the tents, like you never know watching a movie. Like here we have the crafty tent, we got the sound tent, we got the stunt performers tent. So, but they had to keep switching shit around whichever way the camera was going. Like, say we were filming a fight scene, it's just one camera because there's so much chaos. You would see another camera over there, but then they would change this camera to somewhere else. Remember earlier I said how had the acting scene with the actress. People I live with were texting me. They would film it behind us, and then they film it in front of us and just get different angles, completely just going over the same scene. That's how. So whenever they can, they'll put more cameras in. You know, it just depends if you're on location. You know, it's all kinds of stuff, all kinds of variables.
Apparently, I need to buy Zoom Pro. I'm gonna.
There's that stupid time limit.
Yeah, I need to look that. This is the first time I've had that, so that's weird. But I'm gonna end this one, and we're about wrapped up. So I gotta This should be the last one, hopefully. So I'll send you another invite in your email.
Okay. All right, sounds good.
Another technical difficulty. Apparently, Zoom has updated their stuff to where you have to buy it. It's no longer free. So this added another expense to the podcast, but you'll have that.
They were not making enough money, man. That's how these companies are.
Apparently not. I mean, I feel like they made a lot of money through COVID, and now that COVID's over, people's kind of stopped using it, and so it's kind of gone downhill a little bit. I might just switch to Google Meet, whatever.
Dude, we were talking about that actually this week. We have to get COVID tested 2 to 3 times a week. And it's that PCR where they like try to tickle your brain through the nose, and it's a rapid test. They say in like 15 minutes we'll let you know if you're on today or not. And we were sitting there talking. It's on the side of the Sprinter van. It was his business, Cameo, spelled with a K, and mobile testing solution, something with COVID. Like, dude, it's a business now. It's like, where are these people going to go when, you know, productions one day are going to stop testing, and they're spending, because everyone cannot stand it. Everyone hates it. Like, it is just such an inconvenience to, like, the whole day will be stopped because everyone has to test, everyone who's coming near set. And they're just, it's funny in the industry, it's called COVID police, because on sets, they're literally just people walking around. Say, can you put your mask up? You know, and people are just, we're getting tired of it. But there comes a point where it gets like, I get it, like at first, and then there comes a point where people are like, you know what, can we just move on with our lives, please? Yeah, we were talking too, like, okay, wait a minute, we all tested, like, okay, 20 of us stunt drivers, because there was 2 of us in those MRAPs, like 15 Humvees, whatever. Everybody else, all the extras, all the crew, everyone tested and everyone was cleared. So what's with the masks today? Yeah, but that's a whole other subject on its own. Yeah.
So we'll get into the final things of the podcast. I wanted to kind of talk about one of my favorite questions that I ask all of my guests is, and I feel like this is going to be a fun one for you is if you could go back in time and tell your 16-year-old self one thing, what would it be? And the hard part is I feel like for a lot of people, it's only one thing.
Quit drinking.
Yeah.
No, no. Um, don't sweat the small stuff. There's some stuff. Even I praise that, I preach that, but there are some aspects in life, just petty stuff, just to myself that I sweat a lot to the small stuff. It's just we're all going through life. There's much more important things than whatever. Like it's 10 seconds out of your day. Oh, this was only like you had a shitty day. On to the next. There's definitely some points since I was 16 to now that maybe I could have done that better. Maybe I would have gone against that situation. Gone over that situation a little differently. But if I had to say, what would I have to say to my 16-year-old self? I would say, don't sweat the small stuff. Focus on the big picture. You got a sweet life ahead of you. It's what you make it. It's no one else. It's you who is making your life. No one else. There's no excuses when it comes to how your life is running. It's all you.
That I feel like that is one of the hardest things for us, like when we're in high school to get over. Like it's all the little things when we're in high school. Like we all who likes who picture. Like it's the stupidest stuff that we would get mad about. And you look at it now and we're like, why? That like my problems then are nothing compared to what they are now. And like I hear my parents say all the time, after I graduated college, I'm like, I have these bills that I actually have to pay and stuff. And they're like, oh, just wait till you have a family and kids and mortgage and all this stuff. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
now I kind of like, we all want to grow up so fast when we're young, but then there comes a point when we're older, we're like, can I go back to when I
Oh
was?
yeah, dude. I changed my answer. That's what I would say to my 16-year-old self. Quit wanting to grow up so fast and be an adult.
Yeah,
This,
because
this, this
it's
a
not
lot
all
of
the
this
fun that it looks like it is.
a lot of this adult shit, what's going on in the world today, it's not all it's cracked up to be.
No.
That's if I could write a letter to my 16-year-old self, yeah, that's what I would say. Because I was thinking about that today. I was really, to be honest, I was really nervous for this. I didn't know what to expect. I felt like I was going to be put on the spot a lot. I thought it would be more like our growing up questions, like more personable back to Ohio, but it was like mainly, stunts. So that was nice. But the only reason I say that is because I was thinking, you know, back in the day, remember how important we used to think prom was? I was at the gym thinking about this, like prom was everything because right now here there's a lot of prom going on in limos and you could like I was at the gym, I was seeing people, take all these limos, like it's big down here right now and whatever. And cause we used to think like, dude, that was the biggest thing we would ever do. That was everything. And now I think we all look back on it like, you know what? You don't even remember it that well because it really wasn't that big a deal. You got bigger problems, bigger fish to fry today. So there's much more important things to life and happier things to life than any of that petty stuff we used to worry about in high school.
Yeah, I remember I went my sophomore year because I was dating the senior, which I thought I was hot shit. You're the sophomore at prom. You're like, yeah, I'm hot shit. And then I didn't go my junior year, and I honestly, still to this day, am still grateful that I never went. And like, I don't know, our school, I guess, is apparently different than some of the schools in the area. People are like, because I didn't go because I didn't have a date. And people are like, so? And I'm like, I don't know, like it's kind of a big deal, like to have like I feel like you don't go to prom without a date usually.
Well, if we want to talk about that right now, I totally agree. Homecoming, you go without a date.
Go
Prom,
with
you don't go to prom without a date.
Yeah, homecoming is really just a go to homecoming dance and whatever, and then prom's like the more formal per se,
Yes.
but it's still like you spend all this time, all this money. Yeah, it's a cool experience, but is it truly worth it? Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this will move us into the best segment of the podcast, which is Motivation Monday. Motivation Monday is the point in the episode where I allow the guests to give the Roughnecks listeners a little inspirational bump to set the tone for their week as they listen on Monday morning. So what do you got for Motivation Monday?
Dude, whatever you got going on in your life, whatever is hurting you, whatever that guy that pissed you off the other day, whatever in traffic, anything in family, anything with your significant other, or your car's in the shop, all that stuff is very small because at the end of the day, it's just you. You got your stuff to worry about. So for a new week, it's a new you. You can't think about stuff last week. You cannot hold on to that shit. So go into the new week with intensity, whatever you're trying to achieve, whatever you're trying to strive for, focus everything on that. Because if you're really trying to go for a dream, no matter what it is, if you're trying to be like a cosmetologist with your own shop or trying to start your own trade business in one of the trades, something like that, you have to focus all your time and effort on it. So as far as Motivation Monday, whatever happened last week, forget about it. Just focus on this week, focus on your future, because whatever has happened, it's gone. You're never going to get it back. There's no changing it. Attack it with intensity. That's what I'd say.
I like that. And I remember it kind of reminds me of a thing that I heard. I think it was an Instagram, like motivational video or something, which side note, your Instagram stories are the best Instagram stories. Like you will post a lot of them and is the only person that will post a lot of them, but I will scroll through every single one of them because I never know what I'm going to come across. And I laugh almost every single time.
Dude, you are not the first person to tell me that. I love that I provide a good service to everyone on my Instagram stories because I swear to God, like 3 other dudes, my old 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Witt, dude, everyone has private, like all these people have privately messaged me on Instagram saying, love your stories, keep doing it. Because I think because a lot of the stories I repost, I share, it's just a lot of them, when it's not only strictly this, but when it's like a race thing, like when it's a black dude giving himself shit or a Hispanic person giving themselves shit and making the jokes. Like if it was a white person doing that, I wouldn't repost it. It'd be messed up. But stuff like that, or just like all the bike wrecks, kids, like when kids eat shit, that's always funny. And anything like a lot of times I could be on Instagram reels just going one after the other and sharing them, because even I don't think about it sometimes. I go to look back at my reels and it's like so many of those little tack marks, like 100 different. And people have told me before, a friend of mine said, dude, every morning when I wake up and I'm like drinking coffee, I'll be sitting there. It's not Netflix. I'm just sitting here on my phone looking through Jared Corum's reels and just laughing my ass off. You're not a bunch of people have told me to don't stop doing that. And whenever I get the chance, whenever I have time to kill, like this past week, I'd be in the truck. That's all I was doing. So a lot of times I'd just be looking through Instagram, always reposting stuff that I think's funny and other people. I feel like a lot of the stuff I share, a lot of people wouldn't, like I said, the race stuff, a lot of people would be scared to, but like I kind of go the extra mile to do that. So it makes people laugh even more, like, oh, you're ballsy to do that or something like that, but it's all in good fun.
Yeah, I definitely love your stories. But I kind of going back to where I was going, you talked about, now I kind of forget where I was going, but it's your story. Like it kind of, what's holding people back. It was an Instagram thing that I saw, and it was what is holding people back today is that people forget that they're writing their own story. You are the one with the pen. Like no, you can't give the pen to somebody else and say, "Hey, write my story for me." Then they might, and you might let other people control you. But you have to sometimes take the pen back from them and be like, "This is my story." You have to rip those pages out. Don't forget about them. Set them aside because they're good lessons that you learned. But like you are in control of your own story. You are writing your own story. Don't let other people write it for you.
100%. I am a big believer in your life is what you make it. You can't blame anyone for the way your life is. If you're an adult, there's no one to blame but yourself. If you're not where you want to be in life, it's always, I just want to tell people all the time, your life is what you make it. You're here because of your decisions and everything. You can't be bitching about that. That's if you're not liking it, if something's wrong with your career, life, something, I don't know, your house, anything, fix it. Take time. I tell people all the time, make your priorities straight. If you have good priorities, you know what your priorities are that you have to take care of, because at the end of the day, you only have yourself. You can't count on anyone in this life. You cannot trust anyone. You can trust, but you can't trust anyone when it comes to your own life. You can't rely on anyone. It is you at the end of the day. That's, numero uno. And in firefighting, we're always, saving lives and whatnot, but it was your safety first. So if a person, was drowning and they're trying to take you down with them, it's you first, then your buddies, then the victims. That's just a small example, but your life is what you make it. Quit blaming others. And if you were blaming others, separate yourself from them. Go do what you want to do.
You are who you associate with. It's you
Yes.
like if you want to know what type of person you are, show me your five closest friends. They're very cliche, like normal people, like you hear it all the time, but like in reality, it is very true. And there's been times where I've looked at who are the five people that I hang out with the most, who are the three people that I hang out with the most, and then I kind of look at like, damn, I'm a lot like them. I act just like them, and I'm a big person. I like to journal. I don't do it every day, but I do it like often enough to where even this morning I woke up early on a Saturday, which is weird that I woke up at, but I now, you get so used to waking up super early that you just get up. So I got up and I did my journaling this morning and I was reading back on some of the old stuff and I was looking at like, the time when I was down on myself and I was trying to put the blame on others and I was like, but like now I'm at a very good point in my life and that was a very down point in my life, but I'm like, like you kind of look and you're like, who were you then? And you're very glad that you turned stuff around, but it also makes you realize like you can't blame others for everything. You are in control of your own life. No one else controls it but you. You can't blame anybody for anything. You like, and it's just the whole thing of you're you're responsible for your action. Somebody may say something that pisses you off. If you react in a bad way, they won. If you just be like, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
Like
I
they're
know
kind of
that's
like,
hard. I
damn.
know that's hard sometimes, and even me, I'm guilty of it. Some more now, especially recently, I just bite my tongue. But back in the day, it was kind of hard to let some shit slide. And I'm no stranger to it. I've definitely used to blame other people for my actions. I never took I hardly ever took responsibility for my actions. But uh, it was you first. You're the one who messed up. So or in whatever. So it's you at the end of the day as well with your actions. So you have to you have to analyze yourself and think of, how do I unscrew myself and make my life the way I want it.
Yeah. And an example I have is like I work at construction type jobs. So like, the things said on construction sites, you get stuff where you're like, yeah, that like good thing the HR didn't hear that. But like I remember being told things and eventually it used to start pissing me off so much. It pissed me off, it pissed me off, it pissed me off, and I tried and like go back at them. But eventually when you get to the point where you're like you just go along with it or you just ignore it, they quit doing it because they're like, this isn't fun anymore. If you
Yeah.
react to it, that's what they want, and they're gonna keep doing it. So if you just kind of go along with it or ignore it, all of a sudden they're like, well, this isn't fun anymore. Like it's bullying in a way, but that's not kind of like where I'm trying to go with this. It's just like you just kind of sometimes just have to say screw it and just if you just let it go in one ear out the other, and you'll move on past it.
Yeah. If those people, whatever they're doing, if you don't like it, get away from that situation. Get away from, all that, because they're not part of your priorities.
Mm-mm.
If you've already listed and analyzed your priorities, whatever, if they're not the ones who's going to help you get to where you want to be, if all they're going to do is bring you down and, piss you off, and, if you might feel good reacting and feeling like you won, but if it keeps happening, it's exactly what you said. All you're doing is wasting time. Then your priorities are mixed again. So yeah, you can't always be worried about what people say. There's always going to be someone saying some shit.
But with that, that's a wrap on episode 101. I appreciate you, Jared, for coming on. I'll probably have to bring you back on in the future. Definitely,
Oh, dude, I'd be
I
down.
love this.
A lot of
Love
fun.
having you on. maybe we'll do it. Next one we'll be able to hopefully do in person. So
Yeah.
we can make that
Uh,
work out.
I don't know when, but yeah, I come up, I travel back up pretty often, whether for a gig or like this past time was a wedding. But usually most of the time when I do, I'm like all geared towards like once I'm done with all that, I work on my house because it
Mhm.
still has a long way to come. But I enjoy doing that. I really love working on my place. But anytime, yeah, in the near future, whenever, I'd totally be down.
We'll
Thank
definitely
you.
get you back
Thank you.
on here. I appreciate you coming on. But until Friday for Fast Friday numero 10, life is hard and it's gonna knock you down just like a bull does to a bull rider. Don't let the bull of life walk all over you. Get up, grab the bull by the horns, and take control of your life. Roughnecks out. Thank you all for tuning in to this week's episode of the Roughnecks Podcast. If you liked today's episode, then be sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with a friend if you got some value from it. Head over to social media and follow the Roughnecks Podcast on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and subscribe to that YouTube channel. Don't forget to get you some of that merch by heading over to roughneckspodcast.com and subscribe to the newsletter while you're there. See y'all next week. Roughnecks out.